You sit down to do something important. Maybe it is work. Maybe it is studying. Maybe it is a project you have been thinking about for weeks. You open the laptop. You look at the task. And then something strange happens. A few minutes later, you are checking your email, or watching a video, or reorganizing your notes, or researching something that technically feels related. The task is still there, but somehow you are doing something else. Again, most people call this laziness. I do not think that explanation survives contact with reality, because lazy people do not spend hours researching productivity systems. Lazy people do not watch tutorials about self-improvement. Lazy people do not create detailed plans for projects they never start. Many procrastinators are willing to spend effort. They just spend it everywhere except the place that matters. That is why I do not think the real problem is laziness. I think the real problem is discomfort. More specifically, the discomfort that appears right before meaningful work begins. Most people imagine the choice like this: work versus fun, responsibility versus pleasure, discipline versus temptation. But that is usually not what is happening. The real choice looks more like this. Option A is the important task, the report, the exam, the project, the difficult conversation, the application, the thing you know you should be doing. And attached to that task is a collection of uncomfortable feelings: uncertainty, mental effort, the possibility of failure, the possibility of discovering that you are not as prepared as you hoped, the possibility that progress will be slower than you want. The task is not just a task. It comes bundled with discomfort. Then there is option B, the easy thing: checking your phone, opening YouTube, refreshing Reddit, looking at messages, researching instead of doing, cleaning your desk, reorganizing your workspace, finding another video that promises to explain everything. The easy option has one enormous advantage: relief arrives immediately. The difficult task asks something from you before it gives you anything. The easy thing gives you relief first. That is why it keeps winning. Not because it is more enjoyable, because it removes discomfort faster. And your brain notices that very quickly. Imagine this happens often enough. You feel resistance. You open YouTube. Resistance disappears. You feel uncertainty. You check your phone. Uncertainty disappears. You feel bored. You find a distraction. Boredom disappears. Over time, your brain learns a simple pattern. Discomfort means escape. Discomfort means leave. Discomfort means find something easier. And eventually the process becomes automatic. You no longer make a conscious decision. The discomfort appears. The escape begins. That is why so many people feel confused by their own behavior. They genuinely want to make progress. They genuinely care about the goal. And yet, they keep choosing things that move them away from it. The explanation is usually not that they want the distraction. The explanation is that they do not want the discomfort. Those are very different things. This is also why the easy option becomes more attractive when the task becomes more important. A small task creates a small amount of discomfort. A big task creates a bigger amount. A project that matters. An exam that matters. A career decision that matters. Those things create more uncertainty, more pressure, more emotional resistance, which means the temptation to escape becomes stronger. The easy thing starts looking unusually attractive, not because it changed, because the discomfort changed. And there is a hidden cost to this pattern. The problem is not losing 1 hour. Everyone loses an hour sometimes. The deeper problem is what repetition teaches. Every repetition becomes training. Every repetition teaches the brain what to do when discomfort appears. Leave, escape, avoid, find something easier. And the more often that lesson is repeated, the more automatic it becomes. Over time, something strange happens. Studying feels harder. Work feels harder. Creative projects feel harder. Starting feels harder. Not because those activities changed, because avoidance became the default response. The brain begins treating discomfort as a signal that something is wrong. But discomfort is not always a problem. Sometimes discomfort is simply the price of doing meaningful things. Think about almost any worthwhile activity. Learning a language, building a business, going to the gym, writing, studying, applying for jobs, starting a YouTube channel. Almost all of them feel uncomfortable at the beginning. Not because you are failing, because you are entering uncertainty. That feeling is normal. The problem begins when every uncomfortable feeling is treated like an emergency. When discomfort appears and the immediate reaction becomes, make it stop. Escape. Find something easier. The goal is not to eliminate discomfort. That is impossible. The goal is to stop treating discomfort as a command. You do not have to obey every uncomfortable feeling. You do not have to immediately leave every difficult task. Sometimes the most useful thing you can do is stay. Stay for 5 more minutes. Stay long enough to discover that the resistance changes. Because it often does. The beginning is usually the hardest part. Not because the task is impossible, because the transition is uncomfortable. And many people never stay long enough to move through that transition. They leave at the exact moment the work is asking them to begin. That is why just start often feels like bad advice. The problem is not understanding what to do. Most people already know what to do. The problem is remaining present long enough for the initial discomfort to fade. And that is a skill that improves with practice. Every time you stay instead of escaping, you teach your brain a different lesson. Discomfort does not require an exit. Discomfort does not require a distraction. Discomfort does not require avoidance. Sometimes discomfort is simply part of the process. And once you understand that, the problem starts looking different. You are not choosing distractions because distractions are amazing. You are choosing them because they remove discomfort quickly. The easy option keeps winning because relief arrives immediately. But meaningful work begins when you stop treating relief as the highest priority. Because the problem was never the task itself. The problem was the feeling that came before the task. And habits can change once you finally see what they are.